97.7 Dundalk FM.
Town Talk.
Right, I am joined in studio now by Julie Corcoran of Art as Exchange and Dennis O'Higgins of MOPOSOGS, and they're here to talk about their collaboration as part of the Awash with Colour project. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone out there.
The Awash with Colour, I know we've had a few people in over the last few weeks talking about their involvement, but it's something it came together during the summer, I understand, and it has since then. It was initially, I think, a project that you were putting together for Culture Night, and it's sort of at this stage snowballed and become something much bigger. And I know that there is an exhibition to come very soon, and there is a talk then of taking that exhibition around the country when we're in a position to do so. So maybe Julie, you tell me first about your involvement and how it was that you got to be paired up with Dennis.
Yeah, well, it was just some simple, innocent brainstorming and on a Zoom meeting, and the idea was to bring together, as we know, the writers group with the visual artists. So I already had known Dara McGowan, who'd set up MOPOSOGS about 10 years back, and I've kept a sort of in touch with Dara and all the work that they've been doing. So that was a suggestion that I had made, and then the contact was made, and really it was just a beautiful coming together of artists. We didn't know at that stage where this was going, so there was a sort of a leap of faith, which is why I love Jenny Slater's print that we used for the Culture Night, because it's children jumping and it's loads of colours, and they're kind of just making this blind leap of faith, and that's really everyone who got involved with this project. That's really what it was about. We weren't sure where it was going to go, but we just trusted in it, and it was beautiful to do. It was just so emotional and beautiful when we were doing the sharing of the responses. So what has happened is it's become very infectious, and anyone who hears about it, they get excited about it too. So that's where Jackie from Intis in Castleblaney, she heard about the project through Dara, and that's where she offered us the exhibition, which will be opening on the 9th of December.
And Art as Exchange covers a number of different disciplines. You yourself are a conceptual photographer,
yes.
And I might get you to explain that one.
I always have to explain that, because when you say photographer, straight away you get, will you do my communion photos?
Yeah.
So I like to put conceptual in front of it, because basically what it means is I start with a pen and paper before I pick up my camera. I start with an idea. That's the whole idea of conceptual photography. So I would have started with joining my local camera club many years ago. And I've worked through that sort of side of things and had exhibitions and group exhibitions. So that's how I came to AAEX as Art as Exchange. I came in as a sort of a conceptual photographer, and the sort of knowledge I'd built up through being involved with camera club photography in the area. Well.
Okay, so as opposed to subjective, which is, as you said, people do the communions and the confirmations, and I'm sure you're very, very capable of doing them. So, Dennis, you are from MOPOSOGS, the Monaghan Poets and Songwriters organisation, and you were there in your capacity as a writer and a short story writer, I think, particularly.
That's right. I would be a late comer to MOPOSOGS. I was lucky to hear about Dara McGowan, because she was great help when I needed help with respect to my publishing my stories. So that's when about 3 years ago, I came in contact with MOPOSOGS and been there since.
And you say you were a late starter, Dennis. Were you a late starter to writing the stories, or had you been writing them for a while?
I suppose when I started writing the stories, they arose from, the first one arose from wee stories I'd be telling a wee daughter when she was a child, to put her to sleep like all people do. And then I thought maybe I could write a few more of them on different aspects. And we used to do a lot of travelling around the country, camping particularly, some years ago, and you come across a lot of interesting people and a lot of interesting stories, and thought if some of them, I'd put them on paper, and they lay there for years, some of them, until I took a notion that we'd try and publish, and got them all together. So Dara then was a great help with the launch of that book about 3 years ago. And that's how that came about.
And how did it feel when you first held that book in your hand, that there was your work, your stories. First of all, did you want to give them away? Were you a bit reluctant?
No, I was delighted. Well, the first surprise was when they arrived on the back of a lorry. I could never imagine it was going to happen. And I remember when 13 boxes of them arrived, and in the name of God, how am I going to deal with it? How am I going to get them out of the weather for a start? Where am I going to put them? How am I going to get them sold? And that was the next big problem, and the launch was a great help, along with only for Dara, who probably wouldn't have had a launch in Monaghan, and it was a great help. And we did find booksellers extremely helpful. I couldn't believe how helpful they were to us, because I mean, we were nothing compared to the normal booksellers, publishers that publish a book every so often. And I must say, it opened our eyes how helpful people can be to someone who's starting off or needs a bit of help along the way. And we got all that, and we sold all we wanted. The daughter wanted to retain a certain amount, which we did do, and we sold all we wanted to. And it was a great learning experience. It was, the adrenaline started flowing, and we started doing things that we thought we'd never be fit to do, and talking at meetings and all that I would have never done before. So it pushed us into a situation that was new and was great, I must say. We can look back on it now and think how difficult it was, started to break out of the shell. But then once we did do that, it was powerful.
Out of your comfort zone. And there was a story in the paper this morning, and somebody very famous and distinguished who's possibly taken your lead, and that is Sir Paul McCartney. He's just published his first collection of their stories, their picture stories, and they're based on the ones that he used to read to his grandchildren. He made up and read to his grandchildren. So there you are.
Yeah.
You're setting a trend. So this project, Awash with Colour, what it did was it married two different art forms together. And I'm wondering, how was it that you were paired off? Was there some kind of a lottery, or
completely random? And this is where serendipity kept coming into the project.
Okay.
So there was that's what I was saying. You just submitted your pieces. We had Quivo Dwyer in AAEX Art Exchange, and then Dara in MOPOSOGS. Mm-hmm. So Dara gathered the work, Quivo gathered the work. They basically swapped with the Google Drive folders, and then they were just dished out nearly as as they came in, they went out, sort of thing. So it was complete serendipity when you hear some of the stories about how the collaborations inspired each other. It's just amazing. So Julie, what maybe you tell me what came first, because I have the two photographs that are yours in front of me, and one of them would have been what you have passed on here to Dennis for him to come up with a short story, and then the other one is where he's sent you the short story, and you've come up with the photograph. So what way would it work? Who went first, or was it at the same time? Or it kind of worked around the same time. It was amazing how we got paired twice in that sort of sense. But I would have just put in, for instance, we're talking about here, I would have put in a photograph of Foley's Bridge from Tollymore Forest Park, and I would have submitted that. And then when I got a fabulous short story, Paddy Clark, which is just gorgeous, there was a particular, just a visual image that came to my mind, and I recreated that in the photograph, which is what you see in front of it, which is, sorry for the listeners on the radio, it's a black and white photograph, and it's like a weathered hand holding two combs in two colours. You can pick any colour. And it's something, and it's I think it's one that will invoke a memory in a lot of people, and particularly because, as you said, it is in black and white, and the hand is looking slightly weathered or old. But I think there's some of us that had male relatives of a certain vintage that always had one of these combs in the back pocket. It was always there. It was always ready to take it out when it was needed to fix it. You just don't see that anymore. Can I ask you, Dennis, when you received this photo of Foley's Bridge, is it?
I was delighted actually to get the bridge, because
did you know it?
I know the river there, the Shamna River, that flows under it, and I would know some of the bridges because I have done a course, more than one course in that area, to do with tourism. So I know that area pretty well. But in relation to the bridge, I was delighted to get it because I would say I have great respect for those hand-milled bridges. I'm not talking about the new type. I'm talking about that is the old type stone bridge, which was manually built at a time there was, of course, lack of machinery, and it was a great achievement. And I mean, the fact that can be found all over the country doesn't take away from the achievement. And it was just marvellous what people done those days. And I do appreciate that kind of work. No doubt a lot of people got injured or whatever doing it, but it was done. And that's why I was glad to write about it.
So what would, and again, not giving too much away, and particularly when it comes to stories, because you know people like to read it themselves. I don't want us any spoilers there, but how do you set about? You know, what was it like? You look at the photograph, and how do you determine what am I going to write here?
Well, of course, like everything else, for a minute you think, there's nothing I can write here. What am I going to say about it?
Yeah.
But then when you think about it and think about what it stands for and what that bridge done over the years, and it was put to the test by trains passing over and back, and it wasn't a crack kind in it nor nothing, and it had been all built manually, and you know, I just thought of the achievement of putting the bridge there, and the fact that it stood the test of time and weight. And, you know, it's just the achievement, I suppose, I thought, of those who built the bridge.
Well, was there a temptation to Google it and see if there were any ready-made stories there that somebody else had any folklore or...
Well, actually, there is, I call that Sam's Bridge because there is a landmark bridge in the Glasslock area of County Monaghan, which is called Sam's Bridge. Now, I'm not too sure how it got its name, but I gave it the name anyway and gave it a reason why it got that name. And luckily, particularly in North Monaghan, the County Council have left the bridges in place, even though they're not doing anything, a lot of them at the moment. But you never know what the future brings, including greenways. And it's a great thing, you know, to be very easy for them to remove, for the council or whoever, to remove the bridges and widen the road maybe, whatever, because the road is generally narrow as a bridge. But in a lot of cases they didn't do that, and I'd be grateful for that. I think that's a great idea. Leave them there, because if it was only for people to educate younger people of what we had and what was there and what was built, and there's all of use for them. So
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't concur more. Julie, you mentioned there is, you know, we had the exhibition in St. Helena's, and that was, I think, there was a double celebration there because you were there for AAEX were celebrating 5 years, and it
Art
was
in the Park.
Art in the Park, and then it was Culture Night as well. Mm-hmm. There is going to be an exhibition in Aintus, and then there is talk of a touring exhibition as well. And the thing that strikes me, and particularly because you know, I have somebody in here who's dealing with the written word this morning, and I have somebody in here that who is a photographer, and you know, where the obvious marriage for them is in a publication. Has there been any suggestion of that? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that is something that I think from the very beginning, once we saw the material coming in and the quantity, I mean, initially, we were hoping maybe we'd get 6 or 8 people from each group, you know, it would be a nice sort of project to start with, but we were inundated. I mean, it's up nearly 100 pieces when you include the MOPOSOGS work and the visual arts work. So, I mean, when you have beautiful stories and then you have a visual piece that match it so beautifully, and then maybe you want to hear the story behind the 2 artists. You might want to hear, oh, that lady was up at the Giant's Causeway writing a poem, and that lady a few weeks earlier had done some line drawings, and the same spot, you would swear it was the same spot but completely different timelines, and they had never met before. So it would be beautiful to have a book where, yes, you'd have the piece of written work there, you'd have the visual piece, but maybe even a little bit about how it came together. Where was the serendipity? You know, where were the things that made us very emotional about it? And I think that would be beautiful to not just have like an exhibition catalogue, as it were, for what we're doing in December with Aintus, but even if we could maybe develop it a bit more and just go into the background of each of the artists' stories and what brought them to this. And I mean, it's when you think about it, I mean, the possibilities are nearly endless.
And I think that's when I first spoke to Dara McGowan, and I know you've both mentioned Dara, a lot in here this morning, and she most definitely seems to have been one of the major driving forces here. But when I first spoke to her, and it was in our car park outside, and she was telling me, and again, as she was speaking, you could see how excited Dara was getting at, as you said, where the seemingly endless opportunities that were there for expansion on the project.
Absolutely. And it's just, you want to hear good news stories. You want to be inspired, and sometimes art just lifts you out. Like, you're looking at the window, it's a dull day. You can't put the washing out today or anything like that. But art, it lifts us on those days. It lifts us on the days when, you look at the window and you think, oh geez, not another day. But yeah, there's something special about art, and then hearing people's stories about, the project and everything. It's just, everyone really, really is getting behind this. And like I said, we're really excited. We've had great coverage, support from yourselves, coverage in the papers, and just all the feedback that's coming back has been so positive. People have taken so much, whether they were involved or not involved, or whether they'd love to even maybe start something themselves, in a smaller way. It's just that inspiration. I think we need it. We all need it, coming into the winter. And
can I ask, away from the art, away from the writing, has there been strong friendships forged?
Absolutely. I believe one lady is possibly going to be going out in a boat. Yeah, I won't say names because obviously I don't have permission, but Culture Night in the Park was the first opportunity where a lot of the artists and the writers got to meet face to face, and you can have a normal sort of chat. And one artist is doing a project on the Louth coastline, and the writer she was paired with actually has a boat, and they got into a sort of comment. Now I don't know whether he's going to take her out, but it was amazing that he was like, well, I'll bring you out in the boat and you can see the coastline from a different perspective. And nearly every pairing and coupling has some sort of story like that. And I know there's another poet, and he's getting involved, and a lot of people friending each other on Facebook and then following up. So yeah, sometimes when you're a creative person, it's great when all that creativity is there and the reserves are full, but there's times when they're not. And when you're paired up with somebody, or you make a friendship with maybe a poet or an abstract artist or something, you kind of push the boundaries, and you might go somewhere you never thought of in your own mind before, and then it gets the whole creativity flowing again. So yeah, I'd say for anyone out there who loves a bit of creativity, if you're a bit stuck at the moment, definitely look at other art forms, go visit an exhibition, go do those types of things, and you don't know who you'll meet or how you'll be inspired.
Right, well, our listeners out there this morning, there is the exhibition coming up in Aonttas, but in the meantime, if they do want to maybe have a look at what it is we're talking about this morning, and particularly get the visual aspect of it, can they do so on the website?
Yeah, the best thing is the AAEX website, so it's aaex.artspark.ie. So if you look for AAEX, like MOPOSOGS and AAEX they're all on Facebook, and there's an Instagram account I know as well for AAEX. But the best thing is to go to the AAEX website. You'll see under Art Initiatives, you'll see the Awash with Colour projects. You'll also see the members of AAEX. They all have their own sort of bios, so you can go in there. So maybe you heard one of the shows previously, or one of the upcoming shows here on Dundalk FM. You can go into the website there and look up an artist and see what they're doing or what the group is doing, because they've many exhibitions ongoing. I know Creative Spark have one coming up on I think it's the 6th of December. They'll be opening at the print studios there. So there's lots of interesting stuff. So definitely the website is the place to go and check it out.
And Dennis, I know that MOPOSOGS have a Facebook page as well, if people want to check that out.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Excellent. Well, listen, it really is a fascinating project, and I know we're going to be hearing lots more about it before it eventually, culminates where it is going to culminate, and Lord knows where that is. But in the meantime, Dennis O'Higgins and Julie Corcoran, thank you so much for dropping in this morning.
97.7 Dundalk FM. Town Talk.